Bradley, and I am one of the co-owners of the Bag Lady Experience, and I would like to welcome you to the experience. So what we're going to do now is just start from this side of the table, and I would like for everyone to, just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do as it relates to working with children with sexual abuse issues.
Hello, my name is Jessica Fraizer, and I'm the founder and executive director of Straight Street Life Center Incorporated, where we train, coach, and make the community aware of domestic minor sex trafficking, which is the trafficking of American children under 18 years of age.
Thank you.
Okay, hello. My name is Dawn Funderburk. By trade, I am a certified public accountant. I am one of the co-owners of the Bag Lady Experience and the mother of a 15-year-old daughter and a 18-year-old son.
Okay. Again, I'm Martha Bradley. I am an associate licensed professional counselor here in the state of Georgia. Right now I work with children who are currently being sexually exploited.
Hi, my name is Sheryl Allen. I'm currently the outreach coordinator for Prestige Ministry, and I also am the founder of Beauty for Ashes, where we assist women who've been sexually abused.
And I am Tanya Ziegler. I am also a co-owner of the Bag Lady Experience. By trade, I work in human resources, and I have a young adult daughter.
Okay. Thank you, ladies, so much for joining us today. We are so excited and we are greatly appreciative to our guests. What we want to do today is just to have a conversation about sexual exploitation. There's a lot going on in the media right now about young girls and young women who have been sexually exploited. There's a very prominent movement that is being discussed right now in the media. It has been going on for several years now. One of the things that we want to do is not to just talk about it, but just to share some insight as to some of the things that we can do to protect our sons and to protect our daughters. Okay? So you all ready? So just to kind of get us started in the conversation, I do want to share some information about child sexual abuse. This information that I'm going to be speaking from, and some of us will be pulling some facts from, is from an organization called Darkness to Light. What is child sexual abuse? Fact: the definition of child sexual abuse is broader than most people realize. Often traumatic experience for children and teens, child sexual abuse is a criminal offense punishable by law in many societies. Child sexual abuse includes any sexual act, an adult and a minor, or between two minors, when one exerts power over the other, forcing, coercing, or persuading a child to engage in any type of sexual act. Non-contact acts such as exhibitionism, exposure to pornography, voyeurism, and communicating in a sexual manner by phone or internet. One of the things that, with all the stuff that has been going on, I think that's kind of been left out in the discussion about child sexual abuse, is that it happens in our communities, it happens in our homes. If we're honest with each other, some of our family members have fallen victims to child sexual abuse. Some of us may have fallen victim to child sexual abuse. We know predators, not just in our families, in our communities. And another thing I want to be able to touch on today is whether or not we're actually engaged in exploiting our own children. And how are we doing that? What are some of the things that we are seeing that's going on in some homes, through social media, and just in general with people that we come in contact with? Like, what are some of the ways that you think that we're exploiting our children? Anybody?
I know for me, I mentioned that I have 3 I brought 3 kids over here from Texas, but I actually adopted a teenager about 6 years ago. So she's almost 21. And so she was one of the young ladies that I worked with that was sexually exploited. And the safe home that she was in, they're constantly calling me. Can she do this and can she do that? You know, this was before she was 20. And she has expressed to me that she wants to be a spokesperson for DMST. She want to talk about it. She want to, you know, do what her mama is doing and all that kind of stuff. And I'm all for it. But what we weren't going to do was make her the face of this organization because she's one of those success stories that they want to call it. So that's what we weren't going to do. And I made that clear to them because, and even the girls that I've worked with in Angela's house that reach out to me and they want to go on the radio stations with me and talk. I'm having real conversations because in my mind, like, I don't want to re-traumatize you. I don't want to exploit you because, you know, you got a story and you're actually connected with my organization, and I might be far-reaching with all the stuff that I'm saying, but those are the thoughts in my mind about re-exploiting or using them in that light. But I want people to, you know, actually make it worth their time. These are the girls that I've worked with, and they're in like 26 now. They're grown, very grown. But as for my daughter, I wasn't going to allow that organization to use her in that light.
Okay. Anybody else?
That's the only thing I could think of.
How about on the internet and some of the things we see on social media?
What you mean, making postings about our children?
Yeah, possibly, or some of the behaviors we may see in our children through social media. You know, do you think it's a product of what, you know, that may have been going on in the home?
I don't know necessarily in the home, but I do think it's just the things that they are exposed to when they're on there themselves. I think it's a lot of what they see. A lot of them are into the growing up hip hop and all this other stuff. So they see the girls twerking. They see all the, let me go get my bag, let me go do this, let me go do that. So, you know, they're on YouTube, and, you know, people are now going on YouTube and they're making all these videos, and now they're becoming stars just by being on YouTube, making a video at home. So, you know, and they're exposing themselves more than when we were coming up. There weren't so many avenues to expose yourself. You know, we had TV, we had the newspaper or magazine, so you had to wait for something to get printed.
Right.
Now everything is so instant.
Yeah.
And you can't take it back.
And you can't take it back.
I tell that to a lot of the girls that I come in contact with. I was like, I could do stuff, and I did stuff. Let me tell you, I did stuff. But I didn't have to worry about it coming back to haunt me.
Thank
like,
you, Jesus.
10 and 15 years later, like Google says, it's still there. So we didn't have to worry about that. And we can do stuff. And like, I know, like now, we had a discussion about something that was going on at a school a couple weeks ago. And it was like a news station happening in the school where the boy wanted to out some of the girls for their inappropriate sexual behaviors in the school. Wow. And so they just have this way of just mass communicating everything so quickly. And once again, once it's out there,
it is out there.
It is out there to stay.
You know, with the internet and children, you know, it's funny because as a parent, you're very proud of, you know, the accomplishments of your children. So, you know, we say, oh, you know, he got all A's and he got the honor roll, he got this, he, you know, won the trophy in football, whatever it is. But I find, right or wrong, you know, my son's a musician, so I would always post stuff about his accomplishments. And my daughter has her own accomplishments, but I think twice as long, or whether or not I'm going to put it on Facebook, because in my mind I just think about the people who's looking at her. You know what I mean?
How they're looking at her.
Yeah, because for example, I took her out last night to see Ailey at the Fox Theater. Great production, And we took a picture together, and I was about to post it, but she looked so pretty.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? I was like, I don't want nobody looking at my So I didn't post it. But I said, one day when she gets older, she'll say like she does now about all the pictures, why do you have so many things on the internet about him, about how great he was? But it's not that I don't think she's great and all her accomplishments and the fun things we do together, but I'm really, really careful about when I put her on Facebook or whatever, and just because I just always think somebody's looking at her.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree.
She's 15, but
How about when they are talented?
yeah.
Do we see any exploitation going on with our kids when they're talented? Are we always are pushing them
Yeah, I was thinking
in
pushing.
front of other
All the
people?
Mhm.
I mean, that's exploitation.
Yeah.
Because we don't know the mindset and or behaviors of the people that we're pushing them in front of.
Right.
And I don't care if it's the local musician, I don't care if it's your local recording artist, I don't care if it's your preacher or the child ministers in your church. I mean, or the mentors. I mean, and we can talk about talent on a different level. I don't care if he's playing football or baseball. We tend to push our children in front of people and at the same time exploit them. And I'm not sure. And I don't think that a lot of us or enough of us are present enough, which opens the door for things to happen with our children. Anybody have any thoughts on that?
I think about that when I watch some of the TV shows or in passing on TV where you have the dance moms or the cheerleading moms, or you know what I mean, or the children who get into beauty pageants when they're 5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I always think about, do the kids really want to do that?
Yeah.
Or is it the parent saying, I always wanted to do that and didn't have the opportunity, but now my child does, let's make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely the parents because they don't even have
The
mindset.
Yeah.
It's the parents when they're like that age. But going back to what you were saying, there's definitely a fine line because that's one of the methods that traffickers use is fraud.
Mm-hmm.
And then so they can take that little snippet of, so she wants to be a model.
Mm-hmm. I can help you do that. I know some people.
Exactly.
Right.
So all of that will play in the recruiting part. So it's definitely a fine line, a thin line to guarding your child on social media and protecting them in that light.
Mm-hmm. So what about that single parent who's looking for a strong male mentor for their sons, and they're taking them out there? Maybe the mentor is the coach. Does that make our children more vulnerable to exploitation? First of all, the people, do you really know? If I dig through the statistic and find it, it says like there's a large percentage. Most of the children who are sexually abused are abused by people that we know and that we trust.
That's true.
So that's why I asked the question initially: are we exploiting our children? Would our children be associated with some of these people if we weren't pushing them out there?
That's a good point.
Yeah. So it's definitely something for us to think about and consider. Yes, we want help if we're single parents raising our kids, but at the same time, do I need to trust you to the point where you're just spending an excessive amount of time with my children? Even if I really know you like that, the statistic says that the abuse is happening with the people that we know.
Right.
Another thing is, a question I have is whether we place too much emphasis on stranger danger.
We do. We have.
Stranger danger, we teach our kids.
We have.
To stay away from the stranger when the perpetrator
It's sitting right next to
right
it.
is the people that you know.
That's why I've always told my children to trust that Noah. When you in the room, I don't care who it is. It could be Uncle Joe. It could be your sweet Aunt Bessie on your daddy's side. But if you sitting in that room with them and you are uncomfortable, because there's a Noah, I had it as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my children this. I had it as a child, but did not listen to it and protect myself, because I was taught to sit there and be still and don't move and don't be rude and all that kind of stuff. And so I would be in the midst of a perpetrator, because I was sexually abused at 5 on the last day of my kindergarten year.
Oh, wow.
And so that matters. Why? That's why I said that it matters, because of the depression and then the stuff that I went through as a teenager, and then that just really just opened me wide, had me wide open for this sexual exploitation. So, I was saying all that to say, I would let my children know, if you were in the midst of somebody that you just have this feeling, get up and go. Yes. I don't care how bad it look, how rude you look. You ain't even got to say bye, hi, cat, dog, nothing. Get up and go. Trust that instinct that you have.
And just to kind of add to that, when we have people who are looking to abuse children, they are actually looking for certain things in certain children.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That low self-esteem is definitely going to be one of those things that they're looking for. So sometimes in the sharing of information from one person to the next, because maybe we are looking for help for our children because of some behaviors they're exhibiting, and we're sharing this information about our children and telling the predator that my child is vulnerable and very susceptible. You know.
That's so true.
You know, and I don't even think that, you know, the normal parent even is mindful and or considering any of these things, you know.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
And I can relate to like what you were saying. You said at the age of 6. And I think it's important that we believe our children, you know, when they tell you something. You know, at that age, they may be just trying to articulate it the best way they know how. Because I know for me, my abuse started at 6 from the babysitter. But I remember being exposed to pornography. He was watching pornography, you know, and I can remember saying, you know, I don't want to stay here, you know, crying or whatever.
Right.
And, you know, my mom be like, oh, she don't know what she's talking about. Yeah, I did at that age. The only way I knew how to tell you. You understand what I'm saying? So it's very important that we believe our kids, but then also just checking out the surroundings. As a parent, because you know I was a single parent. My daughter's 29 now, and my son is 22. But I can just remember being a single parent, just having to go to work and be there all day. I didn't have a car. I was on the bus early in the morning coming home. So, you know, God knows what they were only open to. You understand what I'm saying? And then, you know, just coming up in a household, you know, Dad didn't say you were pretty. You never hardly saw your dad. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So as a result, I end up having my daughter's father is a pimp to this day.
Oh, wow.
You know, I was never a prostitute, but he's a pimp. And, you know, so there are certain things that happen when you don't get the attention that you need, the healthy attention and the healthy boundaries you need as a child. You know?
Well, I've always told my children that, you know, no matter what, don't listen to somebody who says your parents aren't going to believe what you're saying. They're going to believe me because I'm whoever I am. They won't believe you because you're a child. I've always told them, whatever you say, I'm going to believe it until it's proven false. So if somebody tells you, oh, you can't tell them because they're going to think you're lying, not at all. You come to me and you say it happened until somebody can prove to me it didn't happen. Yeah. And I'm going to act as if it happened until it's proven that it hasn't happened.
Because it hurts a child the most when you don't believe them. You know, and they have to live with that, and it's like torment. You're tormented. Definitely. You know what I'm saying? Because a child only wants their parents to believe them.
Yes.
Right? You know?
Well, I'll say this, you know, my mama was a little mean-spirited. So and so my thought process was, and I'm pretty sure other people probably felt the same, was that we ain't gonna be bothering Miss Martha's children because she look crazy. and so I kind of raised my children. I have 4 with the same sentiment. Like my children really believe that me and their dad are psycho. And so they're more like, I'm going to save your life.
Right.
You don't want to be messed up with my peoples, and that was just kind of their mindset. We all crazy. Don't mess with my kids. But I just, on that note, I just wanted to read some facts about, it says family and acquaintance child sexual abuse predators have reported that they look for specific characteristics in children they choose to abuse. Perpetrators report that they look for passive, quiet, troubled, lonely children from single parent or broken homes. What did I say about giving too much information about your children, just pushing them out in front of people? Perpetrators frequently seek out children who are particularly trusting, find new and work proactively to establish a trusting relationship before abusing them. Not infrequently, this extends to establishing a trusting relationship with the victim's family as well. On one of the other pages, I have to look for it, starts talking about grooming. Abusers often form relationships with potential victims and their families prior to abuse. This is called grooming. Grooming behaviors can include special attention, outings and gifts, isolating the child from others, filling the child's unmet needs, filling needs and roles within the family, treating the child as if he or she is older, gradually crossing physical boundaries and becoming increasingly intimate/sexual, use of secrecy, blame, and threats to maintain control. So I know Miss Jessica, working with the sex trafficking in that environment, you all talk a lot about grooming. Can you share some insight with us about additional insight you may have about grooming?
Well, you said it all. I've actually experienced everything that you read. So that's true. And then the girls I've worked with, the same thing. Just basically meeting their unmet needs. What is that? The Maslow hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
That thing is so real.
It is.
It's so real. And I was going to piggyback off of what you said earlier about the choosing. They actually choose the victims. I said we have neon lights on our forehead. That they can pick us out of a crowd and just start getting to know us. And again, children do, young people do share a lot. They actually go online, and if they're looking online, you know how people would post something as simple as, can't stand my mom right now. Or something like, I just wanna go. I just wanna something as simple as that. You can get you an inbox, a person, a DM. Get that DM, because that starts a conversation.
Yes.
That starts a conversation, and it lets somebody know that, okay, this person wants to get away. They really don't care how or with whom right now. They just want to escape whatever life they're living right now. And it could be as simple on the child side, clean that room up, and it better be clean before I get home from work. Well, you know how that sets some kids off. So grooming is really, I think, meticulous in ways that they use it. It don't have to always be force in the beginning. It could just be some little attention. You are just so beautiful.
And if that's something I've never heard,
I'm in love.
Right. Yes. Oh my God, he said I was beautiful.
I'm in love. And then fixing my nails and getting my feet done, or buying me an outfit, taking me to McDonald's. You've heard McDonald's. And so with that being said, grooming is definitely a process, but with that process eventually comes the isolation, isolating them from friends and family, and your mama just, she just don't understand you like I understand you, You know, 9 times out of 10, daddy's not even brought up. It's obvious that there's not a dad in the picture, or if he's in the picture, that he's not as attentive. Because I was in the house with 2 parents, but I promise you, I felt like I raised myself. I'm just saying. So they can be present
And not be present.
But going back to the grooming process with the children, so the isolation, and then eventually getting them isolated from family, friends, and others. The abuse may be subtle, but it's starting verbally, you know, and then apologize. So it's that, you know, what is that? Stockholm. It becomes that Stockholm syndrome, where I'm putting you down, but I'm gonna build you back up real quick, and I'm gonna put you down again, but I'm gonna build you back up. I'm gonna rub that back. I'm gonna stroke those feelings. I'm gonna go buy you something, and so they confused, all the way confused.
And
that's
then they're
that
kind
manipulation.
of caught into that cycle of abuse.
And so they, even when it happens, they know that the other side is coming.
Eventually, them hands are coming, where there'll be the fear and the intimidation on top of that, the verbal abuse. So, you know, it gets hard. A lot of people don't understand why girls just don't go, because again, they're in love. This person has met their basic needs. They have told them things that they've never heard or never believed from somebody else, because this person is actually showing me by feeding me, providing a place to sleep, giving me clothes, giving me some money, and so to them, that's love. That's big.
And the crazy part about it is the simple things.
It's very.
It's the simple things that draw. It could be something as simple as me listening to you.
Yes.
Because we are communicators from the womb to the tomb. We love to talk. And so, and if you kind of grew up like I did, and probably some, children are to be seen and not heard, and that is very problematic. Because if you don't want to see them and you don't want to hear them, somebody else out there going to see them, and they're gonna hear, and they're gonna listen to your daughters for hours and hours and hours and hours of talking, and that's the Lord.
Yes, it is.
Just to listen to me. He hears me. He sees me. My parents act like I'm not a person.
Yeah.
And that's, we're doing it. We will do it. You know, and so within the context of my own home, even if it was hard for us to sit and hear and listen to our kids, we sit right there at that table, and I have to tell Mr. Bradley, shut it down. Shut it down. We're going to listen to these kids today because we see them. And we want them to know that we hear them. And we do this because we love them. Because I know that if we don't, even if it was another older, like one of my things, we live here right outside in the metro Atlanta area. You know, I got some handsome boys. You know, I was like, if these little older women gonna come and try to snatch my children, snatch my sons, you know. That was my thought process. So I wasn't just alert about it as far as my girls, but I'm looking at my sons, you know, where the women outnumber the men 10-1, and some folk thirsty. I'm real thirsty now. And so now I'm looking like, what can I do? What can we do in the home to make sure that our boys know that they're valued? You know what I'm saying? And so even when our sons played sports, I don't ever remember a time where my husband was not there. I would leave the perimeter, relieve him at one game, and he taking the other child to the other game, because we wanted to be present. We didn't want to just drop our children off and leave them susceptible. And so even within the context of our church environment, we were always there with our children. I don't trust nobody.
Good.
You know what I'm saying? Like that. And that's how we have to be, you know, with our children.
You're right. My exploiter was a preacher. He was about 25 when I was 14. And one of those things was getting into the family, because they can be very charismatic. Getting to know the family, like coming in and sitting talking to my mama for hours and making plans to do A, B, and C with my little brothers. With his access, he started taking me out and then taking me back to his place, where we began to have sex, and it was just like this ongoing thing, and I really never considered myself in a relationship, but I was feeling pretty grown.
Yes.
You said you were 14?
14.
But it's amazing how the sayings that we had in the family as a child, like you said, a child is to be seen and not heard, or what goes on in the house stays in the house, have really caused us to fall victim
Yes.
It has.
to certain things. You know what I'm saying? And that's the reason why people don't speak up when they've been abused, because of these sayings that we've had taught to us. That's sad.
You know what I've always told my children too, that if something happened, like if it got past me somehow, and if something happened, they should always come and tell me, no matter what it is. You know what I mean? They should always feel comfortable coming to speak up, because I won't be mad at you. It will never, in my mind, it will never ever be your fault. So you can't be worried, I can't tell her because she's gonna think I wore whatever, or I did whatever, or I shouldn't have been in this place. No matter what happened, you know what I mean? If it's inappropriate, it's not your fault. So definitely, I'm always gonna listen, because I try to open up that communication so that they feel comfortable in coming and talk to me. Even with my both my kids actually, but now with my daughter, like she'll just be in her room laying watching TV on the iPad or whatever, like they do. And I just go in her room and lay on the bed, and she's like, "Oh, Mom," because she knows what's coming. We about to have a talk.
Right.
That's when we go through the whole thing. Okay, I always ask over and over, has anything ever happened? No, Mom. And we go through the whole thing. And I said, so if she said, I know if somebody if somebody approaches me, I know what to do, Mom. I know. And she goes through the whole thing I've been telling her all her life. I said, I just like to do status checks along the way and make sure those are still still the way the things I believe, and that and that we still are able to talk about it. She's like, Mom, I got it. And she said, and then she goes through the whole thing of, well, you don't have to worry, because if so-and-so, if anybody comes and does this, she said, I'm going to do this and this and this. So she has her own plan. You know what I mean? So, I just try to make sure that they're comfortable, and that they know, just talk to me about anything. Because I think a lot of times there's an opportunity, let's say something does happen, there's an opportunity to end it sooner than it does, but people don't want to come out and say anything because they don't want to, they're afraid to come to their parents or afraid to come to any other adult, And I even put it out there to say, okay, if at any time anything's going on and you don't feel comfortable talking to me, which of course I hope you do, you have your aunties, and they have their own conversations, like, if there's something going on and you don't want to tell your mom, but for whatever reason, come to me. You know what I mean? And they know.
Does she go to parties?
No. Okay. She's 15. I'm the parent. I'm the one that doesn't feel like she's old enough yet. I mean, her dad is worse than me on that, but yeah, I don't feel like she's ready for that. Like, she'll go to like the day parties, stuff like that, but she's not going to any night parties.
Okay.
The crazy thing about that, you asked the question about the party.
Go ahead.
My daughter went to one, and it was in the neighborhood across from us. I ain't gonna say who. And I went in and I met the family. I gave them one of my cards. I was like, if anything, is going on, you need to give me a call. And I made sure, my daughter was very clear on what needed to happen if she's uncomfortable. When she came back, she was like, I was fine, but, I don't think I ever want to do that again. And I was like, well, why? She said, because the adults were drinking. And if it was a kid's party,
right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, for me, it's in a well-established neighborhood, and I'm meeting these people. I'm thinking, everything should be good. And she was like, I wasn't really feeling it.
So I think that's because of her standards that you guys have set as far as parenting, because I don't think you guys would have been having your highballs and all that kind of stuff with other people's children
in the house. Yeah,
yeah.
She was like, oh no. So I've never, really had to worry about her asking me to do that
That's
anymore
good.
because she was so uncomfortable that first time. And I think she was probably about Dana's age at the time. And so she just never asked again.
You know, it's funny. I have a friend who has a 16-year-old daughter, and they were having a kickback. I guess she wanted to have a kickback.
Yeah.
And he's a single parent. So he said, you know, I need help chaperoning. So they had the kickback at their house. And so, you know, we tried to give them, you know, some privacy to a certain level. So we weren't in the room, but we would, we would each take turns going to the kitchen for some ice or going to get some chips. You know what I mean? Or, you know, just letting them know, okay, we are here, just so you know, and can pop up at any moment. You know, and I think that's the key, because I think it's okay to let your children experience some of those things, but under a controlled environment. And so you have to be comfortable with the family. Like you said, things can happen with families even though even when you're comfortable with them. But you have to kind of know, like, if you have parents who are like yourself, who you know have the same, you know, morals, the same belief system, the same protection, I guess, mind, then you kind of know, okay, this isn't the parent who's going to be drinking at a party. You know what I mean? This isn't the parent who is going to be leaving, you know, have the boys and girls together in one room and just go upstairs and act like, okay, I'll be back down in 3 hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's just, it's all, I think it's, like you said, the gut feel. Like, you know, you just kind of, you got to trust your gut and know, like, if you meet a family or whatever, you just don't feel like, this, or even if you go to some kind of party and you're like, this just doesn't feel good to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm not comfortable with this. So, you know, you can stay here for an hour or two, you know, but when the sun goes down, you know, just be ready, because I'm going to be outside going to pick you up.
Yeah, and I think for me, because I was a single parent, I had boundaries and I had rules. And you weren't going if I didn't know the parents. And so for me, I didn't trust everybody either. So unless you parented like I felt like you parented the way I parented, you weren't going. So, you know, I don't care if it is you going to the movies. You're not going with them. Because if I know that their parents let them do certain things that I don't allow you to do, no, you're not going. Because what they're going to do is try to talk you into doing the same stuff that they do. Their parents going to let them get away with it. I'm not going to let you get away with it. So, you know, you need to choose your friends wisely. And so what I was glad that she did is that she did learn how to choose her friends wisely. So, you know, if she knows that they're going to be doing certain things, that she's not going. Because, you know, she's not going to put herself in a situation to get herself into some kind of trouble. And so I've always been glad that she was able to do that, even from a younger age. So, you know, I'm just like, you just have to instill in them, you know, what they need to look for, what kind of people they need to hang around. And, you know, like you said, if you got an instinct that these people are not good, don't be hanging around. Hurry up, get gone, call me, let me know, hey, you need to come get me, or whatever it is. And there wasn't too many places that she was going that I wasn't going to be there anyway. So, you know, you just have to teach your children to set boundaries, because eventually they're not going to be with you. And you're not going to be able to keep a tab on them 24/7.
So what I want to ask now is more about us as mothers again. I know, Dawn, you wrote one of the poems in the book. It kind of discussed how our daughters watch us, watching us putting on our makeup and just watching us in general, how we are caring for ourselves and wanting to imitate, you know, many of our behaviors. Do we think that in part some of the behaviors that we currently see with our children learning to exploit themselves through social medias and other outlets comes from the watching of the parents, watching how we've presented ourselves? If mama twerking, then I need to twerk a little bit too. If mama dropping it like it's hot, do I need to drop it like it's hot too? I know we all know the answer to this question. But just in general, I mean, like, what are your thoughts? I mean,
They are definitely watching us.
yeah.
Just everything, conversation, everything. Work ethic, like if you're always late, they're learning to always be late. You know, if you always need to be around people and can't really enjoy your own company, they're learning that too. So we're teaching them without knowing we're teaching them.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So yeah, if it's a parent that's doing that, the child is watching, so they're probably doing the same thing.
Mama looking a little bit like a thought, because the men keep coming and the men keep going. Not just to your daughters, but to your sons.
Mhm.
You know, we just have to, you know, continue to be mindful, you know, in a sense that our children are watching us, what we say and what we do, how we treat people, you know, how we allow people to treat us.
Yeah, because even your sons are watching you too.
Yes.
Because, you know, you're kind of teaching them what's okay for the women in their lives, how the women, the girls in their lives to behave. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, oh, my mom's like this. She reminds me of my mom. But, you know.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Talk to me a little bit about the family secrets and what goes on in this house stays in this house. Because like you say, you know, Uncle Billy, he been doing what he been doing for a long time. And everybody know Uncle Billy done touched Auntie so-and-so and Auntie so-and-so and niece so-and-so. But families aren't really addressing it.
Mhm. That's true. I know for mine, I remember I grew up basically an only child. My mama started having other kids when I was about 11 or 12. And so basically I grew up by myself with 100,000 cousins.
Mm-hmm.
It was so many of us. But I remember two in particular. The oldest was 3 years older than me, and the one under me was 3 years younger than me. She went to her mama, and she said, Uncle Norris touched me. And her mama said, girl, stop lying. Go on somewhere. Go on somewhere and stop lying, is what she said. I remember hearing this, and I said, well, I'll never say anything then. If she didn't believe her, then, you know, I'll never say. And that was just my mindset as a little girl, because however old she was, I was 3 years older, but I was still like not even 10, because he passed at 9 when I was 9.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just remember thinking that, and I was like, oh, goodness, I can't stand these people. I never did like my mama's side of the family.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because of alcoholism, because of the molestation, because of the just mean people. I felt like as a child. But my mindset, this had to be God. Like, I've always believed he had his hand on my life, because I've always wanted to be different. Like, I just had to be different. Like, the manipulation on the side of the family is so real. That's why it's hard for me to ask somebody for help, because certain people in on that side will go to somebody. Oh, I don't know how I'm gonna pay right.
And you didn't want to be that. You didn't want to be that way.
You know, to pull on somebody.
Right.
That's manipulation.
Yep.
I knew that as a kid.
Yes.
And didn't like that.
Right.
And so my mindset was like just to be different. And so, of course, on the flip side, again, it has caused me to be like just this go-getter. And if I don't have, I don't have. Hard
And
to
that-
ask for
right.
help, you know, which can be, you know, prideful. And so I've worked that out. I'm getting better, you know, recognizing when I'm in pride. And, but I said all of that to say, you know, in our families, whenever it's because we're all dysfunctional in some kind of way, form or fashion, you know. Where's the perfect family? Where's the normal family? I hate those words.
I do too.
I
do
hate
too.
those words with a passion. So, but within a dysfunctional family like that, these people have been operating like this for generations. For generations. I just happened to come along and say, not from this point on. Not with mine. And so I thank God for that. but they've been moving and shaking like that for generations.
Basically.
Basically.
Last year I pulled one of my elder family members to the side about some of the whispered behavior. I didn't pull him to the side. He was sitting out there with my brother, so I was just like, since you stopped by and you in there and you keep calling my name, well, let me go ahead and ask you about this, because this is what I heard. And I want to know how you were raised that would bring you to a place to where you would do the things that you did. And we had a conversation about it. He slightly admitted some things. But, he was, from his perspective, he had a very broken childhood, while that is never a justification for anything. It just kind of helped me understand, because I'm a person who's always seeking to understand, not to condemn, but to understand. And so, it's just and in my mind is if family members did that more often.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. It's so good that you were able to, to talk about it with him, or talk about it in general, period. Because many families don't do that. I had an uncle growing up, and while I was very fortunate that I was not molested or exploited in any way, there were family members that he did abuse. And I didn't know that when I was younger. I didn't know that's what was going on. But as I became an adult and I got older, you hear what people are talking about. Well, that's why she's on crack, because she just blah blah blah. Or that's why she was prostituting so many years because of what he had done. But the fact that all these adults in that family.
Y'all ain't gonna say nothing.
Y'all not gonna say nothing, and then
nothing,
right? And on
and sweep it up under the rug.
Yeah, and it was remain married to the day he died. You know what I mean?
No,
His
I'm
wife
tearing
didn't
down blocks. I'm kicking in doors.
Yeah,
I'm fighting. Because that is wrong.
Yeah,
that is so wrong. So what do we teach generation after generation? That his secret is in his behavior is more important than the individual that he's permanently damaging, causes permanent damage. And like you say, that's why so and so is strung out on drugs. And then there's another statistic in here that says that it is more that people who were abused become abusers.
Because people hurt others.
Right. And
because that's all that they know.
And it don't have to be like they become sexually abused. I was not the best mom in the beginning. And I was thinking about my oldest last night. I don't know, just laying in the bed thinking about her. I was like, oh, wow. She was the one that endured that person.
Yes.
So that person. So, yeah, it does. And it don't mean that they'll become a sexual abuser, like abuse other people sexually, but that brokenness, that hurt, that don't know how to process situations, thoughts, just whatever appropriately. Yeah, you can hurt some people.
Yeah.
And just speaking on the family, I can just remember I'm not really being or staying with my mom. So like for years, I was like, even as an adult, it wasn't until, God started revealing things to me. I was like, how can I not love somebody that I came out of? You know what I'm saying? Like she gave birth to me, but I never was really around my mom. And so like I would be at my grandfather's house, I would be at my aunt's, I'd be everywhere. But I can just recall every man in my family was so lustful and abusive. They were physically abusive, mentally abusive, verbally abusive, and just very lustful. They always had other women, and it was just crazy. And it's so funny because when you say the secrets, I can remember being at my aunt's house a couple of years ago, and so she was calling me her sister. So I said, sister, hold your breath, Tanya. I was like, sister. And so what she was telling me and what they began to tell me was that my grandfather was my dad.
Oh, wow.
And so I said, huh? So rewind that back and tell me how this all came about, And so as they began to tell me, they was like, well, they were saying that my grandfather raped my mother. And that's how I came about. And so when I asked her, oh my God, she just went off. And I was like, lady, it's not that deep. The man is dead. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nothing I can do. You know what I'm saying? But if it happened, then, let's try to get you some help, some healing. And so when I asked the person that's supposed to be my dad, and he was like, yeah, that's what he was saying that was true.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know who to believe. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So I said, okay, I'm just a little mystery mix of a child.
Wow.
But so it's just, you know, sometimes these little secrets, secrets can destroy. Even the lies still kill and destroy, just like the enemy. You understand what I'm saying? So it's like you got to be honest. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying? But I'm okay with whoever he is. You know what I'm saying? Because it's still not going to stop me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? For being the best that I can be and dealing with whatever issues that I've had along the way with the sexual abuse. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
But it was just amazing to me. I'm like, okay, I'm sitting around all these folks having a family gathering. And you say I'm your sister.
Oh, wow.
And all the other sisters and the brothers, my aunts and supposed to be uncles, everybody's sitting there. And so everybody just looking when she said it.
So, and everybody know, obviously,
Right.
but you.
But me.
Wow.
Ain't that something?
Mm-hmm.
I remember one of my favorite movies of all time,
The
Color Purple.
Oh, okay. I was something. No, there's another movie that made me think about that. That happened
Yes,
in
on
your
one-
movie. Yeah, I can't think of the name of it, but yeah, the same
Probably
exact
one
thing.
of them Tyler Perry
It
movies.
was.
Somebody should be on the movie, right?
Yeah, you might.
But back in the 80s, I'll never forget, we were watching the VCR tape of Color Purple. And I remember my grandmother leaving the room and she was like, I can't stand movies like this. I didn't think anything about it because at the time, because that was my movie. Like I know that movie from beginning to end. Can quote everybody line. But as time went on and I was, again, being an only child, I was around a lot of adults and I was very nosy. Like, really. Like I would put a glass up to the wall so I could hear it. So I was very nosy. So I did learn some things by being nosy like that. Seriously, I learned some secrets, and it caused me to understand why she didn't like movies like that. That's why I said that side of the family it's been a generational mix of trouble and stuff, and I was very honest with my children, all of them, even Leah when she came to me, just exposing and being transparent about things that happened to me and why I was parenting them the way that I was parenting them. You know, I'm not just being strict because, you know, I'm just a crazy lady, but, you know, just A, B, and C, and then the repetition, because that's good. Just being repetitious about certain things. Well, if you go and don't you leave a drink, don't come back to it, and da-da-da. You know, just completely just being repetitious with my children. It was a purpose. There was method to the madness.
But it was fear too of what we had also experienced.
You know,
And then sometimes it's not just experience. Sometimes it's just something that you know about.
Yeah, right.
So like I said, with the uncle, I didn't experience it personally, but however, my kids, they already know. And we have a conversation about that all the time. So whenever they would go somewhere with a family member, a family, whatever, immediately when they're coming out, I'm talking about, okay, did anybody, I don't care if it's an uncle, you know, whoever, an aunt, you know, whatever, grandparents. I'm like, okay, so everything all right? I mean, you know, anything happen, anybody touch you inappropriately? And they're just like, I mean, you know, they can say, I'm like, I reserve the right to ask all these questions over and over again for the rest of your life. It is what it is. You know what you got in the mama. You know, you got to take the good and the bad.
Yeah.
You know?
But see, I can remember being at my grandfather's house, and my mom would come down to see us just hardly ever. You know what I'm saying? Because she was an alcoholic at that point. And my grandfather would always go to the other room. Like, he would be so angry. And I kept saying, and now when it came out about the sister thing, I just started putting the pieces together. And I said, why was this man so angry? Because I didn't see her do anything. You know what I'm saying? But he would just, I want her to come get what she's going to get, and I want her to go. You know, or y'all go outside and be like, he hated her. You know what I'm saying? And so it would make sense because it was just crazy. It was just chaos in that place.
So what I want to do now is kind of touch on some of the things that, if a child has been victimized, like what are some of the behaviors that we might see as a result of them being abused? So Darkness to Light was nice enough to include some of these things in their paperwork. So they note that children who have been sexually abused may experience some academic problems in childhood. Okay, Substance abuse problems beginning in childhood or adolescence are some of the most common consequences of sexual abuse. Delinquency and crime, often stemming from substance abuse, are more prevalent in adolescents with a history of child sexual abuse. The risk of teen pregnancy is much higher for girls with a history of child sexual abuse. Mental health problems are common and are a long-term consequence of sexual abuse. Obesity and eating disorders are also common in women who have a history of child sexual abuse. And as I was reading this, I couldn't help but think of, and we kind of talked about it earlier before we started taping, like some of the names, we might call girls in the family who we perceive to be a little hot. Hot. And so, what would they say? You look hot in the ass. Y'all know I ain't lying.
Fast. I've been called Jezebel.
Yeah.
Stuff.
It probably, hoes and sluts and a whole bunch of other things. But if the information I'm providing says that children who have been abused may exhibit certain behaviors,
Exactly.
you calling them hoes and sluts and telling them they hot in the ass and calling them Jezebels, and you missed it.
Right.
You missed it.
Right.
You missed the opportunity to see that the child was hurt and the child was broken and may have had some other things going on.
Yeah,
So while you were too busy calling names, you should have been asking questions. And so that is definitely too something that we need to be mindful of. If you had a child and they were behaving, I'm going to use that word, normal, whatever their normal was.
Right, whatever it is. Right.
And then you see them start to act out. Maybe they're withdrawing. They're isolating themselves. They start, becoming delinquent for whatever the reason. You might see some truancy in school. It may be some depressive symptoms. They might stop coming out of the rooms,
Right.
You may see them a little, oppositional, defiant. Those are times to really start asking questions. If you had missed it before, not talking about your bad and all this other stuff and maybe putting your children down to other people, because we like to do that too. But just trying to, really connect with them in a different way to just really try to explore what these behaviors actually means for them. If Susie child down the street always been delinquent, well then, Susie need to deal with her, but you don't need to compare
Right.
and contrast with Susie, about y'all's children's behaviors, believing that they own the same thing, because they may not be. And as we're preparing to kind of close up, I want to talk about some of the things that we can do to help keep our children, our boys and our girls, safe. How do we keep them out of the grasp of the enemy, of the sexual predator? Not all people who, according to the statistics, abuse children are pedophiles, so they're not just all, seeking to molest children. It may have been more of an opportunity crime than anything. But what are some of the things as parents, as aunts, as neighbors, that we can do to kind of help our children?
I think communication is key. That's one of the main items, I think, to what am I looking for? To make it clear, to open, like if you have an open door of communication, they know they can come talk to you about things, because sometimes children are going through things, and if they don't have anybody to talk to, that's when they're leaning on someone else who don't have good intentions, but if they feel they can talk to you, about if they can talk to you about anything, or, they know that, okay, I made a mistake, but I can go tell my mom or my dad, I'm just going to go tell them, I maybe get a punishment or whatever, but I'm just going to go tell them because, or whatever, anything that's happening, So I think it's important for children to feel comfortable talking to their parents, and to know that I think, like you said earlier, that that they're believed. You know, like you may come and say something that I may not want to hear. I may not, you know, make me uncomfortable. But to know that, okay, if you tell me something, I'm going to believe you.
I would concur with that, Dawn. We teach our children to value themselves by valuing them.
And yeah. Good point.
And so if we move in the space of your children are to be seen and not heard, then that teaches them that they have
No
No
voice.
value.
no value, no voice,
Mhm.
and they're not worthy,
Mhm.
is what we teach them when we do that to them. So definitely communication is key. And not just, communicating in a way to just ask them questions, but to be transparent.
That's, yeah.
But
That's
to
the
be
word I was looking for.
to be transparent with not just with what has gone on with you, but it may have been somebody else that you have known.
Mhm.
And so sometimes, I've heard a lot of kids say they felt like, the parents were too controlling and too and maybe were smothering them.
Too strict.
Too strict. And so, but they don't know why.
Right.
And I think it helps children to know
It
and
does.
understand
Why?
why.
It does.
They can accept it better with the why. You know what I'm saying? So, 'cause my daughter could tell you, well, mama wouldn't let me do this, and this because of this, and this.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so that's me. I value her. And because I value her, I wanted her
To value herself.
to value herself. Okay? Does anybody else want to share anything about some of the things that we can do to help protect our children?
I think being involved in their life is important. You know, like you mentioned earlier, you don't just drop them off at the football games. You know,
Yeah.
somebody's there, supporting. It's kind of giving them less opportunity for one-on-one interaction. You know what I mean? If you're always around, then the likelihood that something like that could happen
Okay.
decreases exponentially.
Anybody else? I would just remind us to be mindful as parents of our own behaviors and ways that we too may be participating in their victimization or in their exploitation. One of the things that I saw while I was kind of doing some research on the topic was the power of no, and teaching our girls in particular the power of no.
And setting boundaries.
And setting boundaries. I was a grown woman.
Yeah.
Like 6 years ago before I
6 years ago, bro.
before I fully understood what it meant to have appropriate, healthy boundaries. And so because I didn't know, there was no way I could teach my kids. So those things are extremely important as well. Again, that you can't trust anybody enough when it comes to caring for and protecting your kids. Okay, so that is it. How you all feeling?
Good.
Great. So just really quickly, tell people, Miss Jessica, how they can find you in Straight Street Ministries.
Straight Street Life Center Incorporated. We are on Facebook at Straight Street Life Center. You can find us on Instagram, Straight Street Life Center, and our website is sslifecenter.org.
Okay, thank you so much. Tell us how we can find you.
Okay, so you can find me if you want to get information about Prestige. It's at ladyofprestige.org, where Taffy Dollar is the founder of that ministry. Or you can reach me if you want to deal with women that have been sexually abused through Beauty for Ashes at Sheryl Allen 24 at yahoo.com.
Okay, thank you so much. And as always, we are the Bag Lady Experience. You can find us at www.thebagladyexperience.com. Shameless plug. We just released our latest volume of poetry. From Pain to Poetry, finally free, Volume 4. Visit us online at TBLEpublishing.com. Get your copy today.
Get it today.
Today! We are so thankful for you ladies
Yes,
coming out today to join us to share your stories with us. We thank you for viewing. The fourth part of who we are is behind the camera. Miss Cassandra McKibben Dallas, we thank you so much for being here with us today. Again, we thank you. Bye.